Okay, so we're going to look at using the 3D camera tracker, and what this does is it simulates the movement of the actual camera that's been used to film the footage. So the example we've got here is we've got the footage. Well, it's actually a 3D environment, this, but the same would apply if it was actual live action. We've got the camera movement here, so it's zooming in, panning across. Okay, and then we've placed these two elements. So we've got the text here, and we've got an animated symbol here. It enables us to place these elements on the original footage, and then basically the 3D camera tracker simulates frame by frame the movement of the actual camera that was used to film the footage, and it enables us to create the illusion that the elements that we've added, the text and the animation, are actually part of the footage. Okay, the difference with this is we've looked at motion tracking. Motion tracking enables us to track the motion of an element within the footage. 3D camera tracking enables us to track the motion of the camera. So that's the essential difference. Okay, so if I just show you, if I click on the MP4 layer here, we've got the 3D camera tracker properties here. If I just click on here, you'll see these series of marks or track points, should I say, and this enables us to select. So the computer creates these track points, and then we can select a plane. So if I mouse over these track points, it uses any three of them to basically triangulate a target point. So you can see the target appears there, and that target point is on a plane on a 3D plane within the footage. So if you choose a target point that's on the correct plane within the 3D space that you want your element that you're placing in there, so that's what we're going to do. So you can see there that target is pretty much, the angle of that target there is pretty much at the same angle as the text here that I've placed. And obviously the same with the animated target here. Oops, hang on. So here you can see that needs to be at the same angle as well. So again, we select a target point for that that's on the same plane. So if I go down to some of the track points here, you can see that the plane that these track points down here define in 3D space are at a different angle. Okay, so we'll move on now to start to step through this process. Okay, so first of all, if you can download the assets from Teams, and then if you can open up the file, the After Effects file called Camera Tracking Start. Okay, and that has all the assets in there that we need for this demo. Okay, once that's open, if you can select the file called Mountain House MP4, which is our original footage, drag that down into the layer panel, okay, to create a composition. Okay, so we've got the MP4 in the layer panel here. Okay, and we've got a composition created called Mountain House. So the next thing we want to do is actually add the 3D camera tracker. So if you click on the actual layer we want to add the tracker to here, if we go over to the, if you remember the tracker panel on the right here that we use for the motion tracking, so if you open that up and select, so rather than track motion, this time track camera, and what that will do, that will analyze the footage, okay, so frame by frame how the camera moves throughout the footage, and then add a 3D camera that simulates the movement of that, of the original camera. Okay, so we'll just give it a minute to do that. Okay, and you'll see once it's done that, it places this series of track points that I mentioned before across the footage, okay, and then uses those to define different planes of objects within the footage. And if you scrub the playhead through the footage, you'll see that some of those track points change, or additional track points are added, because obviously the footage is changing as the camera moves through it. You know, the objects are, the view of the objects is changing as the camera moves through it. Okay, so just to revisit what I said earlier about how the when you're using the camera tracker, what it does is it analyzes the camera movements, but also what it does is it analyzes the 3D data, so data about three-dimensional elements within the footage. Okay, and like I said, to define a plane on a three-dimensional plane within the footage, it uses 3 track points. So if I just zoom in, so if I just mouse over here, so this target appears, yeah, and if you look closely here, there are 3 crosses, track points highlighted, and there's a kind of very pale white shape projected between the 3. Okay, and that's how the 3D the plane within 3D space is defined. Okay, so it uses X, Y, and Z coordinates of those 3 track points, and then determines a plane between the 3 of them. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. Okay, so again, if we just select our layer here, if we go to Effect Controls, you'll see the properties for our 3D camera tracker are visible here. Okay, yeah. So then what we want to do in the Effect Controls here is create the camera. Okay, this will add a 3D tracker camera layer. Okay, it's analysed all the camera movements, and we now have our 3D camera tracker that's simulating those precise movements of the actual camera. Okay, now we're going to place our first object, which is going to be a text object, on the, we want to place it on the plane of the roof here. So I'm going to mouse over the roof here, find a plane. So most of the track points here are pretty accurate in terms of the plane of the roof from this view. So I'm going to click here and select and place this target here. You can see the 3 track points illuminated there. Okay, now what I can do is actually click in the middle of the target now and shift it around if I want to. So if I want to slightly reposition it, I can. When I'm happy with that, I then right click in the center of the target and select Create Text. Okay, you will see our text object appear. Okay, so we created our text object. So I'm going to double click now on the actual text object, and that highlights it red. I'm going to change the text. Okay, and you'll see we need to do a bit of scaling here. It's too big at the minute. So obviously you're familiar with changing text properties. We've got the character panel here, so we can adjust things here until we're happy with it. Change the font if we want. You'll also see the little gizmo here with the XYZ coordinates on it, directions on it. Again, we can adjust, click on any of these. Let me do that again. So selecting the move tool, you can press V. We can adjust the position of the text in either the X, Y or Z direction using the gizmo. Again, we can scrub through the footage and adjust it from different viewpoints. I think I'm just going to focus on getting in the right place from this initial sort of angle first. Just scale it down a bit. Okay, so I'll let you adjust your text till you're happy with it. Okay, if you scrub the playhead, look at it from different angles, you might see like this angle here. I just want to bring it down a little bit on the Z-axis, so it's sort of flush with the roof, and again just shift it along on the X a little bit till it looks convincing. Okay, and then we can continue to scrub the playhead and make sure it all plays out okay. I'm reasonably happy with that. If I go right to the end here, don't worry about the message about unable to solve camera for this frame. That's just on my machine. There's just 1 or 2 problems with the graphics card. But so you see there, it's starting to look like it's lifted off the roof a bit. So again, I can adjust it on this final final frame here. Just an important point actually, if you do find you're having to adjust the text, you know, if the angle changes a fair bit like it does obviously at the end here, you're looking at it from a very different angle, you're probably best, rather than minor adjustments, adding some keyframes. So you're actually, you know, if you think of this as an animation, okay, 3D camera's tracking its position, but to fine tune its position, you can keyframe it. So if we click on the text layer, press P for position, and then where we think we need to just adjust its position, we can then click on position, click on the timer to insert a keyframe, and adjust it on that particular keyframe. So again, it's about making kind of judgments really about how it's looking, and then again we want to put in another keyframe here. So just this final bit, I'm just going to insert 1 or 2 keyframes just to make sure it continues to track properly. Okay, so I've just added 1 or 2 keyframes just to adjust the position of the text, particularly at the end here where the angle changes quite dramatically. So the final thing I just wanted to do with this text object is, if we select it again here, go to the text layer here, where go to modes, and we've got our various blending modes which we looked at before here. I'm just going to change it to overlay just so it looks a little bit more like it's actually written on the roof of the house there. Okay, so now we're going to add the animated object I talked about. Okay, now the animated object is this one here. It's already a composition, so again you can attach compositions to target points as well. So if you just double click on it here, it's called circles, and that will open it in another window here. So if you just scrub through, you'll see this is the animation. So it's like kind of an animated target really. So it's a kind of indicator that we're going to place on the roof of the house as well. You see these kind of things a lot in games. You know, you can add additional information maybe about an environment or a character or an object within an environment. So yeah, we're going to add this as a kind of target on the roof. Okay, so if we go back to add the target, so if we click on the MP4 layer, the mountain house layer, go back to effect controls, click on 3D camera tracker to get our track points back up. And then again we can zoom in, so I was going to place the target somewhere here on the roof. So again, if we mouse over amongst these track points until we find a plane, a target on a plane that's about the right angle, so that looks fine. So we'll click there, select that one. I don't think we really need to reposition that, it looks fine. And then right click in the middle. Now this time, rather than adding a text object, we're going to add a solid object, which is the animation that we've already made. So if we select create solid, again we can just scrub the playhead to see how the camera tracks that. Probably need to just adjust it a bit. So if we click on the actual track solid layer here, again we can use the 3D gizmo to just adjust the position of that a bit until we're happy with it. That's looking not too bad. Okay, so we can live with that. Okay, now we want to drag our circles animation onto this track solid layer. So we're essentially replacing this pink rectangle with our animation. So we go back to the project panel here, click on the circles composition, holding down Alt, so that's important to remember, click and drag, hold down Alt, and just drag it on top of the track solid layer, and you'll see it will replace it. Okay. Again, we can scrub the playhead, see how that's looking. It's looking fine, the animation's playing away. Reasonably happy with that. You could scale it if you wanted, reposition it. Just going to scale it up slightly. So again, clicking and dragging on one of the corners, holding down Shift to constrain. Just scale that up a little bit. There we go. Okay, so that's not looking too bad. I'm just going to zoom back out to full view. Final thing, I'm just going to change the blending mode of this one as well. So if we go to the circles layer under mode here and select overlay as well. Okay, and then reasonably happy with that. That's tracking okay. That's fine. Okay, so you can now save that. You can export it as an MP4 if you want. As we've done before, export, send through to Media Encoder, and export as an MP4, as we've done before. But now, importantly, what I would like to do is experiment with this technique. Okay, so what I would like you to do is shoot some footage of your own, or you could use some footage if you've got a walkthrough of a 3D environment you've created. You can convert that into an MP4 and import that in. So either video footage or some footage that you've created in Unreal. You import that in, and then I want you to experiment with using the 3D camera tracker to add elements, so text or animations, or they could be photographs, or range of different elements you can add. It could even be another piece of video. So a common use for this sometimes is, say you've got somebody looking in some live action footage, you've got somebody looking at a mobile phone camera screen, a mobile phone screen should I say, and you want to overlay a particular something onto their screen. So it's loads of possibilities with it. So yeah, so that's what we'd like you to do now. Experiment with this technique using some of your own footage. Okay.